Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And once again, I'm excited to have on the show an amazing guest to help us actually work on our businesses. This is Jeffrey Shaw. He happens to be someone I've heard speak before, and I'm excited to have on the show because he's often described as the authority and advocate for self-employed business owners. He's valued for his actionable items that are related to in-the-trenches approach that he uses in achieving business and life success. Now, why should it be him? How many people can say they've never worked for anyone else, right? Well, one of the things that Jeffrey does is he has a book that he has authored called LINGO and the Self-Employed Life. He is a host of the Self-Employed Life podcast with nearly 2 million downloads and is the founder of the Self-Employed Business Institute. He has a TED Talk that he has done where he's featured on TED.com, and at the same time is a LinkedIn learning instructor. He's a contributor to the Entrepreneur Magazine and speaks at a variety of events, entrepreneurial groups, and conferences. So, Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Roger. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, this is going to be amazing. So many of the people that I interact with are admittedly self-employed. Although they're the owners, they operate an accounting business, whether they're solo entrepreneurs, just basically servicing their clients on an individual level, or running a very large firm with partners and staff. Regardless, they're self-employed. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is just kind of go through a few things that I find interesting. And it's, first of all, the mental hoops that someone has to go through to be an entrepreneur. For a lot of people, that can be a struggle. Initially, they don't see themselves as being an entrepreneur. Sometimes they're forced into starting a business. It wasn't a dream or a longing that they had. And lo and behold, they find themselves in business. Can you talk to that mental shift that takes place where all of a sudden they realize they were doing something on the side as a hobby, maybe bringing in some income, and then realize I have a business?
Yeah, for sure. And I would even go as far as saying that I make a pretty strong case as to why one should refer them to themselves as being self-employed versus an entrepreneur or a small business or a solopreneur. In that, to me, when we proclaim that we are self-employed, we are stepping into ownership of that, right? We're running our own business, but also when we're self-employed, we're recognizing our boldness to even step out into the world being self-employed. We're letting people know that when you are self-employed, even if you've never been self-employed, for somebody that meets someone who is self-employed, you know that it's one big barrel, right? It's your personal life, it's your business life. They just know that you're not living a life that is as compartmentalized as somebody else's might be. So I try to encourage people to really take ownership of proclaiming with pride that they are self-employed. Entrepreneur is probably the most common replacement of that. But, I think there's a certain spirit to entrepreneurship that can be excellent, and it can be perceived as building something to sell. It can be perceived as a little bit more of a hustle culture. Not always, but I think entrepreneur definitely, I think, has a vibe a little bit more that you're building something to sell, as opposed to self-employment is likely to be the business you're building to support your life that you may or may not be able to sell, or you may choose to sell or not. But most people that choose to become self-employed are building a business at first, primarily to support their life and their lifestyle. Whether they sell it or not is a little bit of a later thought. So I think the mindset begins with embracing being self-employed. I think the other big, probably what I've become keenly aware of the past, honestly, here I am 40 years into being self-employed. I've never had a traditional job. I've never received a paycheck. I've been self-employed my whole life. And it's not until recently that probably the biggest mindset became obvious to me. And I think the reason it wasn't obvious is because I've lived it. But now that I'm seeing other people and supporting other people becoming self-employed, probably one of the biggest mindset shifts is to realize that you're an unconventional business living in a very conventional business world.
Interesting.
And I could say, Roger, piece by piece, and you saw me at ProfitCon, and that actually is the framework of my keynote. I go through what I call translation after translation on how we as self-employed businesses need to translate how other businesses work into ways that work for us. And in most cases, it's almost like you have to completely flip it upside down, where A conventional business can give an offer to a new customers only. But when you're self-employed and you have a relationship-based business, you can't give an offer to new customers only because you'll be ticking off your existing customers.
Uh-huh.
Right. So that to me is the biggest mindset shift. And I see people suffer with it all the time. That they break out into the world to be independent and a freedom seeker and start their own business. And next thing you know, they're following the tried and true practices of the past, which at this point are just tired. And they can't figure out, they don't see the disconnect for themselves.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'm going to go back to the first thing you're sharing. That really resonated with me. And then I'm going to come to this that you just mentioned. The whole idea of being self-employed, I really liked how you said they need to embrace that. So often when I'm having conversations with business owners, the realization that they have, I think it's an epiphany of, I started a business and the first employee I hired was me. I did myself a favor and hired myself. But to transition into thinking like an entrepreneur, building a business that has value other than myself, there's a leap there. And the way I describe it is there's three evolutions that typically a business owner goes through. First is the job. I have a job. Nothing happens in the company unless I do it type of philosophy. But at some point, you're going to employ others. And with systems in place and such, you experience then a lifestyle that's different than if you had a job elsewhere. You're benefiting from the fact that you own something. And then all of a sudden, you get to that next level, which is the ultimate of being an owner. You own something that operates autonomous from you. It's a self-sustaining entity. But this first stage that you're referring to is so personal. It's so palpable. It's an emotional stage. The phrase I use is becoming an accountrepreneur. First, people typically see themselves as accountants, bookkeepers, tax preparers. But once they embrace the entrepreneur element that coincides with what they do for a living, I think that the embracing, like you're describing, is so powerful at, if nothing else, an emotional level. So I really appreciated you sharing that. This whole idea of now trying to do business in an unconventional way, I agree with you. So much of the business that the business owner is doing when they're especially running an accounting business is with business owners that they're friends with or associated with. There's a personal relationship. And so some of the strategies that might have been employed in a corporate environment may no longer be effective in this world. And they're trying to navigate and figure out which are those strategies, processes, systems that they're going to, create or implement. So that brings me to a question. The idea of being self-employed, the lifestyle, there is a unique lifestyle. They say it's lonely at the top. They say that as business owners, we are unique. What are some of the lifestyle elements that you find are characteristic of running a business, being self-employed, that we can identify?
Well, you hit on one of them, loneliness, which has always taken me by surprise. And I'm not sure how I've structured my life and my business differently, but I've never quite felt those same elements of loneliness. Although over the decades I've been a business owner, I have had coaches along the way, and I think that's part of the element of because you can, when you're a business owner, as you're saying, lonely at the top, you can be surrounded by a team, you can be surrounded by clients, you can keep yourself in conversation all day long, and yet still find it's lonely, right? Because when it comes down to it, it's the decision making that we have to do that can often make us feel lonely. Anytime I've ever felt lonely in my own business, it's because I didn't have other people to help me make decisions, and we're making all the decisions ourselves. That's usually when I feel some degree of loneliness. But I would say, Roger, some of the other shifts, if you will, the differences in the lifestyle. For one, when you become self-employed, right? When this thing that you're building, this business that you're building is your own, one of the first things and most important things I think you have to recognize, and this is going to be a very different experience from corporate or any other job, is that your level of success is now proportionate to your level of personal development. When you're self-employed, that is a key difference, because until you realize that your level of success is relative to your level of personal development, until you realize that, you are likely to be stuck on a hamster wheel, because what happens is you think you're going to work your way to success. You're just going to work harder, put more hours in. But the fact of the matter is, if you could be squelching and shutting down all that hard work because you're pushing yourself forward, but you've got limiting beliefs that you don't deserve success, or you've got, as they would say, people have more of a fear of success than they do of failure. People have more issues with abundance than they do scarcity. So if you're not working on yourself to open up the capacity, as I refer to it, like you have to, anytime you want your business to grow, when you're self-employed, because it's so interrelated to who you are as a person, even if you have an extensive team, right? How you're leading that team is coming from your values and your own belief system. So if you want your company to grow, you have to increase the capacity of what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're capable of. So to me, it's a constant series of, I look at it as a very organic breathing process being self-employed, in that if I want my business to grow, I need to grow my own capacity. If there's a ceiling above my head of how much I think I deserve, or how big I think my business can be, or how large I think sales can be, if there's a ceiling above my head, the first thing I have to do is to raise that, to believe in bigger and more, so that I can then, myself and my team, can get out there working hard, and there's capacity for that hard work to pay off. So that, to me, I think is, especially if you're coming from a corporate environment, your level of success is probably more proportionate to how hard you work and how much you've made yourself known in your company. But when you become self-employed, and even if you're leading a team or you're a business of one, your level of success is now more directly proportionate to your personal development. And that, I think, is a key difference in being self-employed and how it relates to you personally and your lifestyle.
Wow, I love this. I do agree with you. I think that the business is in so many ways an extension of the owner. The easiest way I would describe it is just like you were sharing. There are mindsets. I refer to them as presuppositions. It's how people run or make decisions in their life, and those carry through into the business, the culture that you're creating, the interactions that you're having with your customers. And you talked about it. Are you an abundance mindset oriented person or scarcity? Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Do you work out of a pessimistic point of view? Are you someone that actually has a healthy relationship with money? There are so many things that bleed into the business, and you as a leader have to recognize that these things that you're coming from your youth, your experience, and bringing to the business impact the business. And just a related story, I remember a conversation that I had with a billionaire. He's running a $1 billion company. He himself wasn't a billionaire. But the $1 billion company that he was running, he said that his goal in running the company was every 6 to 12 months was to basically put himself out of a position, which was his way of saying, I needed to figure out, systematize, create a process for things that need to be done in the business, and then I needed to hire someone to take over those responsibilities and move on to the next thing, because in order for the company to grow, I needed to evolve. And I thought there was a powerful lesson for me to realize, because as I've done the same thing with my own business, I've realized the more that I can document, and then after I document, duplicate, figure out a way to train someone else to do it, and then delegate them to run with it and have the autonomy, the authority to actually run that, I put myself out of that position. I'm no longer doing it. I've hired someone else to do it, but then it opens up the opportunity for me to do the next thing. 100%. And that's the growth of the business.
I often refer to this as strive to be bored, which is never anything an entrepreneur or a hardworking business owner wants to hear, but it actually is what you should be doing, right? Strive to be bored, because the more you can head towards boredom means you're clearing the plate, and you're not going to be bored, right? You're going to get to a place and you're going to fill it with something else. But that's directionally, instead of heading towards more work and working harder and longer, we should actually be striving to be bored, so that we're constantly making the space for somebody else to come in. And I want to comment on what we were saying before. Again,
please.
In tapping into even what I was saying much earlier about this nature of conventional business versus unconventional businesses. Here's a really common phrase people say about self-employed people all the time, is that and self-employed business owners say to themselves that there's little to no line between their business lives and their personal lives. But the way that that's been misconstrued is what troubles me, because the way a lot of people interpret that is that you're business is bleeding into your personal life, that you don't know when to take time off, you don't know how to separate the two. That is not I don't think that's that probably is the root, the root of people saying that, but I don't think it works so much today. When one says there's little to no line between your business life and your personal life when you're self-employed, let's please not have that mean that you don't have boundaries. What we want that to mean is, as we were saying, what that should mean is that your personal development is related to your level of success. So it's not that you don't have boundaries. It's not that you don't know when to say no or don't know when to stop working. It's understanding, yes, there is little to no line between your business and your personal life, but it's relative to your personal development and your level of success, not whether you have boundaries or not. And I think that's a really important distinction.
You know, how that resonates with me is that I know that in our culture, and I think this is very, very common and important to bring up, is we oftentimes identify individuals by what they do for a living. It's one of the first questions we ask when we meet individuals. And to your point, I think these boundaries are a healthy way of saying we need to be a composite of multiple variations of who we are. I'm not just the president of Universal Accounting Center. I'm also a father. I'm a husband. There's a variety of things that I'm actively involved in that I can say I do. And it's because of those things that I think I'm a broader individual. And so to just presume that I'm a singular entity, I'm the president of Universal Accounting Center, I think is too myopic. I think I need to be broad in what I'm doing. And those boundaries that you're defining allow me to have those different traits, those different situational personas, if you will. I'm liking what you're hearing because it resonates with me.
Yeah, I even think, there's a different way of answering that question, what do you do, that not only encompasses all that you just said, but also sets you up for referrals that a lot of people overlook. So when people ask you what you do, don't give your title.
Yeah.
Don't tell people what you do.
Exactly.
Tell people who you help.
Yes.
Right? Because then it's broader, right? If somebody asks you, what do you do? I say, I'm a coach for self-employed business owners. I help them balance both their business life and their personal life to greater success. And now there's a conversation, right? And it's not this singular, I am business coach. It also invites people to say, I can think of somebody who needs to speak to you. Right. So it invites referrals, and which is actually how I began looking at this years ago, is how can we answer the question, what do you do, in a way that it invites people to refer you? In all my decades as a portrait photographer, when people would ask me, what do you do? I didn't just say I was a portrait photographer. I would say I photograph families and children on location at their second home or vacation homes. All right. And because I skipped over their primary home, I just went right to the fact I photographed families and children at their second home or vacation homes. That immediately told you I work with a wealthy clientele. And inevitably, somebody I was talking to said, oh my gosh, I know somebody who you need to talk to. Right. So it started for me as a way of initiating referrals. But in the end, I think it addresses what you just said, that we're more than just the singular of what we do. And we should invite conversation in the broader sense of who we serve, and have that open up a conversation to find out there's more to us than the singular thing we do.
I appreciate you taking this in this direction, because interestingly enough, whenever I'm asked what I do, I hardly ever, nearly never respond saying I'm president of Universal Accounting. I try to avoid implying or saying that I'm the president of a company. I'll typically say I either work for an accounting school, or more importantly, to your point, I'll say I work with business owners of accounting firms to help them increase their revenue, improve their profits, and build the organizations they've always desired to get paid what they're worth. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, that's interesting. So you work with accounting professionals, or you do what with them? How do you do that? So it leads into a much lengthier conversation. And from that, I oftentimes can get referrals and so forth, which if I just simply said I'm the president of Universal Accounting, I run an accounting school, none of that conversation would ever take place.
It's a dead-end conversation. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting. I was with a group of friends, and they were asking what I did, and these were friends from high school and so forth, from my neighborhood. And it was interesting because a lot of them weren't aware of my current profession. And as I introduced myself, I just said, what I just shared. And one of my closer friends said he's being modest. He's the president of the school. So it was proof to my point that it's not the title that matters. It's more what I do and how I benefit those that I work with. And that's what resonates. And that's what people are interested in talking about. So I like this. This is a good conversation. The next thing with regards to self-employment, what advice do you have for someone regarding branding? I think, especially being a photographer in some of your trade, you have a lot about it. I think you've got a wonderful image. I believe what you're doing is so important, especially in a self-employed world. The business initially is so much of an extension of ourselves. How do we need to consider that? What do we need to contemplate as we realize that we oftentimes are the ambassador, we are the image, the poster child of the company?
Mm-hmm. So the my first book, which is called LINGO, was really a breaking down of the psychology of language, psychology of brand messaging, by which I was able to go from a kid growing up in a small town in upstate New York to becoming one of the premier photographers for affluent families. Right? I didn't come from money. I didn't come from anything that looked like money or affluence, and ended up being this go-to photographer for affluent families. And so my book Lingo is the brand message. It literally discloses everything as the brand message strategy that I accomplished. And I called it Lingo because that to me is the goal, right? The goal was in my case, I wanted to serve a clientele that I didn't come from their world. But I realized, and I think that's true of all of us, we can serve whomever we believe we're suited to serve. And I truly believed, even though I didn't come from money, I truly believed I was suited to serve affluent people, and not because they had money and not because I thought it was going to fill up my pockets. Because honestly, I was in my 20s. I wouldn't have even known what a lot of money was at that age. But the reason why I felt I was suited to serve them was because of our values. I felt like I shared their values. I felt like I understood them. I was creating portraits to hand down from generation to generation, and portraits that they would be willing to invest in, like fine art, to hang on their wall. And only people with discretionary income can plan that far ahead. You know this in your business. People that have discretionary income plan for their future. They save money for their kids' college education. They save for their retirement. I came from a world where people were struggling to get by month to month. So there was no life insurance. There was nothing banked for the future. To me, being a photographer, I was creating something that was banking on the future. So I had to work with people that had discretionary income. And that was a value alignment for me that I was very clear on. The problem was I didn't know what made them tick. But Lingo is the intentional strategy of whomever you choose to serve, that you believe that you're meant to serve. It is understanding their lingo, and their lingo is like a secret handshake. Their lingo is like when you know somebody so well, you know what they need before they know to ask for it. Mm-hmm. That's what lingo feels like. Now, the most compelling brand messaging that we can create is to create for your ideal clients this feeling that they get instantly, that you get them to such a degree that you understand their lingo, their, air quotes, secret handshake or secret language. So this is what I set out to do in my book Lingo, to really, tap into what was familiar to them, what were familiar environments. So I would go to high-end stores in New York City. I was building my business outside of New York City. So I would go to high-end brands in New York City and not so much study the brand, but study the cues. Like, why did this brand speak to this clientele, a very affluent clientele that your normal people don't even go into?
Yeah.
What's the familiarity of the environment, the pricing structure? I realize there's such a powerful psychology to pricing. Pricing positions you. And in the low end, such would be the case of Walmart, they position themselves for the everyday person by having a pricing psychology that's not rounded off at all. It's down to the 100th of a cent, right? Rollback pricing. Very specific. Yeah. Where on the high end, the pricing psychology is very vague. It's rounded off to whole numbers. It's just, if you don't do cents. It's just rounded up.
Exactly.
So I started unpacking all these cues. And so what that tells us, regardless if it's high end, low end, anything in between, it doesn't matter the market you choose to serve, but brand messaging, what you're putting out in the world on your website, what you're putting out in your marketing materials should speak the lingo of the people you're trying to attract. And if it doesn't, that's when you're wasting your time on clients that aren't your ideal clients. It's when you're wasting your time trying to prove your value to people, because if they're your ideal client, they already see the value in you. And I don't think the importance of brand messaging can be overstated. I actually think it's so much more important today than it even was in the past. And I'll reference a study done recently by Forrester Research, I believe, did this, that stated people make a 70% decision to hire you or choose you before they contact you. 70%. As I tell my coaching clients, by the time they reach out to you, you just have to not screw it up.
Yeah.
Like, they've made a 70% decision to hire your accounting firm. You have to ask, where are they getting that information? Right? They're self-vetting. Like, they're looking at your materials, they're looking at your website. They are getting a sense as to who you are before they even decide to contact you. So you have to wonder, is what's coming across to them what you want to be saying? Does it align with your ideal customers? Is there a disconnect? So I just don't think the power of brand messaging today cannot be overstated, because we have so little time to get people's attention. And as business owners, we have no time to waste on customers. The Pareto principle, again, I was saying earlier, translations, reversing things. The 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, states that 80% of your income comes from 20% of your clients. What that's really saying is you're wasting your time on 8 out of 10 people. I don't know any small business, self-employed business that has the time to waste on 8 out of 10 people. We need all our clients to matter, all our clients to pay off. And I think that comes by accurate brand messaging.
Well, the thing that's, I think, very important about this brand discussion is the fact that so often I think the self-employed solopreneur, the one that's starting their business, is so eager for business that they're too often willing to take anything and everything that they can conceivably fit into this bubble of the services they're providing. They'll bend and kind of appease a potential client just to get the deal. And I think that's understandable, because I think everyone experiences that. But what you're looking for is that greater clarity as to who you are, what you offer, how the customer benefits. It's going to the extent of creating that avatar of your potential ideal client, defining who the ideal client is, knowing, as you're saying, their lingo. What is it that they want and need before they can even express or communicate that? What's the perception you're getting out there? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because to avoid getting these clients and this work that you're having to bend and kind of massage to take in, you should be putting out the right messaging from the get-go. And the sooner you can better communicate what it is you do, the better you're going to then draw in the right clients. Yeah. You're going to get the right business because you're communicating more effectively and better.
Yeah, and it may take some patience, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe there are faster ways to say yes to people you shouldn't be working with, right? But it never pays off. It is hard to unwind for that for two reasons. One, it is really hard to change your brand message in a way that people are going to suddenly take you more serious, if you will. But as well as, it's also hard for ourselves. Like, once we have gotten used to saying yes once the moment we've decided that some money is better than no money, we're trapped.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, it may take a little more patience, but hey, case in point, Home Depot is never going to become a boutique business. We'll never, right? We would never buy into it. We've put them in a box. We know what they stand for. They stand for something clearly a lot of people want. Stay there. If they suddenly, and by the way, they have tried. They have tried launching alternate brands that were higher end, more boutique, and they failed. because once it was discovered that it was Home Depot, and they actually, unfortunately, even if you didn't know they were Home Depot, they were trying to do something they weren't really fit for, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. The only brand, honestly, I think that's done this well is Toyota, because Toyota owns Lexus.
Lexus,
and,
yeah.
Right. And a lot of people, somehow they've hit both ends of the market and they've done it well. Like Toyota can be a more affordable brand. Lexus is not the brand for everybody. But they do it well, and they do it well enough that people don't care if they're Lexus. Although I did have a friend, many, many years ago, I had a friend who owned a Lexus, and she suddenly discovered it was made by Toyota, and she was just appalled. She was like, I own a Toyota? I thought I owned a Lexus. I'm like, well, but they're one of the few brands I think that has done that well. But, let's face it, like I said, when you're starting a business and you think that some money is better than no money, you are on the hook for I don't know how long before you can unwind from that, because it's, you're stuck that you're going to take all business. It's better to just be patient and get the right business, because that's where your exponential growth is. That's where the hockey stick moment is, when you become, the go-to person no matter how finite your market is, when you become the go-to person for what you do, you'll get a much higher percentage of ideal clusters. So instead of being 80-20, it would be reverse, where 80% of your income is coming almost from all your ideal clients, and you're not working with any non-ideal clients because we just can't afford the time.
Yeah. This is where I think niching comes up as a conversation. This is where I personally believe happiness starts to step in. You start to really feel like you're making a difference with the clients because you're being so proficient in what it is you're doing, because you like it so much. You're eager to do it. You're not lamenting the job because this is something you want to do. There's a lot of elements that come into this. So the sooner you can get to that point where it's clear, your messaging's clear, your purpose is clear, your deliverables clear, all those things then I think help with your messaging resounding with your potential client and them being drawn to you. So yeah, this is really good.
Yeah, I always say as a coach, and I've said it for decades, that if I had the number one thing everybody needs, or I should say those that want to make a difference, the number one thing they need is clarity. And clarity is the hardest thing to sell as a coach because it's so nebulous. Mm-hmm. But there is nothing that can change someone's business than them being clear on what they stand for, who they stand up for, their audience, their market, their message. That's the most important thing, because then you can march forward with clarity, not only just for yourself, but people can see you clearly. I've done a talk in the past where I actually took a selfie of myself through the glass pane of my shower. So it's me in the shower, right? Okay. With my arm reaching out the door to take a selfie of myself through the glass shower pane, which of course is steamed up, and I'm on the other side of it. And I wiped away just a little bit of the steam. And that is my metaphor for that's the work we need to do. This goes right back to being self-employed, that the work we need to do inward for ourselves is to wipe away the fog, so that we can not only see out, so we know where we're going, but people can see us inward clearly. That's the work for us to do. Like, we need to make sure our brand message is clear. And you and I were talking a moment ago about websites. And one of the things I do is I review hundreds or thousands of websites through a gift that I offer. And I can statistically say that of all the thousands of websites I reviewed, 98% of websites are not saying what people intend for them to say. 98%. And the problem, Roger, here's the thing. Here's the problem with a bad website. I've had a lot of people say to me, I don't get any business from my website, so I'm not going to invest in fixing it. Okay. And I'll look at them and say, have you considered it's because your website sucks? Like, it's not the technology, right? It's not that people don't go to your website, because guess what? They're going to your website. It's just not doing anything for you.
Yeah, it's the messaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things that we were discussing earlier is how I just literally before our conversation was speaking, and the conversation was we had a person that's a prospective client communicating with us what they understood our business to be based on what they saw online. And there were some obvious disconnects that I understood, but we need to address, because it just means our messaging is not that clear. And what after I've been doing this for more than 20 years, I thought was clear and simple, obviously isn't. And what matters it's not my opinion that matters. It's the perception of my potential client that matters. And so I need to adapt and resolve that. And so just prior to this meeting, we were identifying what are some of the changes we ought to be making to better communicate that messaging. So I appreciate the service that you're offering, because outside perspective matters. It's where we get that insight that we don't have living the day-to-day lives that we lead, sharing the messaging that we do. So I think what you're doing is powerful.
Yeah. My favorite phrase on that is that you can't, this is again, unique to being self-employed, is that you can't read the label from inside the jar.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're self-employed, you are so far in the jar that you can't see yourself objectively, which is why you need an outside perspective. And I'll tell you, on the application that we provide for people they first have to fill out an application for me to take a look at their website. And the hardest question, and imagine that this should not be the hardest question, but the hardest question on the application that people have the hardest time answering, or very often answered incorrectly. The question is, what do you believe are the top 3 values of your ideal customer? Now, think about the importance of that. And again, realize that most people don't know. It's the hardest question for them to answer. Or what they do is when they write back, they'll tell me what they value. I'm like, no, you missed the point of the question. Yeah. What are the top 3 things your ideal customer values? To not know that is a major problem. Every business should be able to immediately identify what are the top 3 things your ideal customers value. Do they value, here's a kind of a eye-opening one often, is most people value time over money. Just by nature of the way most of us live. I mean, if you're given, how often, I always say, if people didn't value time over money, FedEx wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? For by and large, busy people today value time over money. You need to know that about your clients, because then the truth matter is they care less about your rates than they do wanting to understand how you can save them time. Right? But there's emotions, especially in the accounting business, right? There are emotions that you want to ask. It's like, what are the emotions, the top 3 values your ideal customers really care about? If an accounting firm, for example, serves small business owners, probably the most important, or one amongst the most important values to a small business owner is, I'll say, confidence, right? I mean, they want to sleep at night. So when it comes to their accounting, what they value really high is the security of knowing that the IRS isn't going to be knocking on their proverbial door or sending a letter, right? If I'm working with somebody now who's an accounting professional that specializes in the healthcare and legal professionals. And if you really tap into what they most care about, is an accounting error can cause them to go into litigation. Right? It's bigger than owing the IRS. When you're a healthcare professional or a lawyer and there's something wrong with your accounting, it's bigger issues. It could affect your licensing. It could affect, right? Bigger. So you have to understand, what do they value? And it's amazing to me that is often the hardest question for business owners to answer, and they must answer it. What are the top 3 values of the people you serve?
So I'm going to go out not on a limb, but I'm going to go out and share what ours are, and maybe see if there's anything you would add to it. What we've learned over so we've been in business since 1979. And with all the feedback and comments that we get from our graduates of the programs that we offer, there were 2 very common words that came up, or synonyms to those, and it's confidence and competence. Being that we're a post-secondary school for accounting professionals and we help them especially start and build their accounting businesses, the confidence to be able to look a business owner in the eye and say that they can take care of their accounting needs, address their bookkeeping, tax situations, was huge. That was the difference between them getting the client or not. And so confidence was a resounding thing that came up repetitively. The second was competence. Competence was their ability to then do the work profitably, get it done in a timely way so that they could actually be profitable doing their business. And so time and again, our messaging has always kind of revolved around confidence and competence. And those two things are, I think, essential in the messaging, because when someone's going to pay for a program and hope to learn something that they can implement in their life or in their business, they're hoping to leave that program, that training, with a greater confidence or competence to then turn that into something financial, a financial gain. That's what we're trying to always address and provide. So for us, it's a very simple question, but that's come after years and years of listening to the customers and hearing what it is they're saying about why they pay money and go through the programs we offer. So that's what I would respond to you and say. And I think that person that was sharing that the perception was off is that we were disconnecting in not the confidence and competence. It was for whom. For whom are we giving the confidence and competence? And that's where I think we're going to kind of refine that a little bit better, because we so often are working with people that are starting their business versus established firms. But oftentimes I like to start with the end in mind, the goal being you're established, you're profitable. And so I think we were talking too much to the established business owner, which we oftentimes work with. We can't alienate our potential customer of the person starting, and we need to be a little bit better in our messaging there.
Yep, it's a good point. And I'll point out, and I haven't looked at your website to see if what you think is coming across is what you're really coming across. But I will point out that both are emotions, right? Confidence is clearly an emotion, but so is competence as you described it, right? It's easy to think competence. It would be easy to think because people buy emotions, right? People are emotional buyers. So they're going to buy into your message and your thing that you're offering based on emotions first. Yes, the logical mind will kick in, but that's why I have a psychological process by which I a sequencing that I deliver for brand messaging. But by and large, people are emotional buyers. Confidence is an emotion. But as you described it, so is competence, and that's why I was really curious to see where you went with that, because the way you described it, this is about making people competent at what they do so they can be efficient at it and be more profitable. Profitability is an emotion.
Yeah.
We don't think of it as an emotion, but profitability is an emotion, because the number one reason people go into business is freedom, right? So what people want is freedom from not having enough money, what have you. So profitability has a lot of emotions tied into it. You've made competence, which can often just seem like, yes, you're going to have a good skill set. But the important thing is that the real emotion that you want them to get to buy into is that they're going to be competent, so competent in what they do that they're going to be more profitable. The profitability is the emotion that they're seeking.
Yeah, you said it very well. It's truly the time and money. At the end of the day, they want to realize that they can do the work efficiently and profitably. They want to know that they can save time and in the end be profitable and basically live the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. So that's the end goal, and it is an emotional decision. All sales, I think, are emotional. So yes.
I work with someone who refers to herself as a daily money manager. So it's a little different than accounting, but she steps in and takes over the daily finances for families, either elderly, where the person for all the years that has taken care of the finances is now incapable of doing so, or perhaps passes away, and then the spouse remaining has no idea which end is up. But as well as she also works with very young professional couples that are making some serious mid-level six-figure incomes combined, but they have no money left over. And they don't know why. So she's a daily money manager and really helps them manage their money on a basis. But when I did her branding for her, the standout statement, as I refer to it, right? The standout statement being the biggest headline of the website, so that when your prospective client gets to your website, that standout statement is speaking so true to them, they're hooked. Right? So her standout statement is get your life back. That's simple. Get your life back. Because that's what her ideal client is looking for, right? They are often the dual income young couple, don't even have kids yet. They're making mid six-figure incomes combined. They have no money to take a vacations. They're stressed out. They're doing repairs around their house. They're not golfing like they dreamed that they would be golfing. And she's convinced that if she gets in there, and if you're her ideal client, she can see what's wrong, fix it. You can get your life back. You can start saving. You can start vacationing. You can start playing golf again on Saturdays. right? Because for her audience, getting their life back is a strong emotion. It's what they're looking for. And this is a professional who can help them achieve that.
Love it. Love it. This is wonderful. We're coming to the end here, and I do want to ask before we wrap this up too much. You also have a book called The Self-Employed Life. You talked about LINGO. What can you tell us about the self-employed life? What are maybe the learnings or the takeaways that we could look forward to by reading that book?
Yeah. So it took my editor to point out the relationship between the two books, because when I started writing the second book, The Self-Employed Life, it felt like a tangent from LINGO. And she pointed out to me, I think your strength is in helping people create the environment for the results they want. So in LINGO, I created a brand messaging environment. The result that you want is to attract more of your ideal clients. So this is the strategy to do it. Is you learn the strategy to understand the lingo of your ideal customers, you will call forward more of your ideal customers. In the self-employed life, I was creating what I literally refer to in the book as the self-employed ecosystem. It's the broader ecosystem of your self-employed business to get the results you want. Because the fact of the matter is, when you become self-employed, everybody that I've ever met that is self-employed, when I ask them why they went into business for themselves, everyone has the same answer. It's they want to control their destiny, the control of their future. They want freedom. And I love to ask, how's that going for you? Right? Because that's what you want. And then you go into business for yourself and it looks nothing like that because it's a pretty out of control environment. Life is out of control in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Pandemics can come along. What I learned in my 40 years of self-employment is that the best we can do is create the right and most thriving environment for the results you want. The correct marketing, systems in place that can practically operate on their own. The brand messaging is an environment. Your business model, as far as what services you offer and how those services are what I refer to as suite together, like how are they linked? So people, you can keep your customers, loyalty programs. So in the self-employed life, I deliver what I refer to as the self-employed ecosystem, which is the entire ecosystem from personal development to marketing to daily habits, all of which you need to have a thriving environment for which you should be able to get the results that you want. And there's also a level of acceptance with it. If you have actually set up all parts of your self-employed ecosystem in a healthy way, 90% of chance you're going to get the results you want. And if you don't, for whatever reason, what can you do about that? There's no guilt. There's no, if you've done all that you can do and you don't get the results you want, you can look at how you can fix it. But at the end of the day, you can't blame yourself. So the Self-Employed Life is a broader book about the entire setup of a self-employed business, both as a startup and really was written for people that have been in business for quite some time and aren't quite getting the results they want. And I believe the ecosystem that I present will solve that.
Very good. No, I love it. Thank you for that summary. What I'm going to do now is actually just kind of wrap this up, do a quick summary myself of our conversation, but I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. Before I go any further, though, I do want to actually share with the listeners that in the episode description, we're going to invite you to actually take advantage of this opportunity to have Jeffrey actually review your website homepage and get some feedback if you'd like. You can go to the episode description and there find the link with the information you need to actually submit and have him review your website and literally get some feedback on what it is that you've presented your website online to be, and whether or not it lines up with what you're hoping the messaging is saying as to your offering, who you're actually marketing to, and so forth. So take advantage of that offer. Go to the episode description, and in doing so, you'll actually see there what it is you're needing. In addition to that, what we're going to be providing there happens to be a turnkey business plan. It's literally what you're needing to do to work on your business as a turnkey business plan. It's one for accounting professionals to, in fact, build the premier accounting firm in your area. So this turnkey business plan is one you'll definitely want to take advantage of. It's literally going to give you what it is for short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives so that you can offer the quality accounting services your clients deserve and need to get you paid what you're worth. Now, with that being said, as a summary, I really did enjoy the conversation today with Jeffrey. I felt at the beginning when we were talking about being self-employed, it being a mental and emotional decision, recognizing that you are self-employed, it is a job, I think is a realistic description of what so many of us experience. I do believe that as you're transitioning from being self-employed to being an entrepreneur, there is a mental evolution, and it's something that we need to embrace and understand. We talked about how we should introduce ourselves and what it is we should be explaining about who we are. I thought that was a helpful conversation simply because of the fact that it's so common for us to inappropriately introduce ourselves. And I mean inappropriately in the sense of generating referrals, creating a conversation, having people have a curiosity about what it is that we do for the people we service. So that was helpful. The other thing that I thought was interesting is this branding discussion, recognizing that especially when you're a solo entrepreneur, you are the ambassador, the poster child for your business. And he really did a great job, Jeffrey, of explaining why brand is so important and how it's so important that you understand the elements that make up that messaging and how you can actually intentionally figure out how best to communicate who you service, what you do, and really kind of draw in the ideal customer. And he brought up the Pareto principle dealing with the 20% that are our ideal clients. Let's see what it is we can do to maybe mold or address, maybe even get rid of those other 8 that might be distracting us from the happiness, the wealth that we're looking for. This other part of the conversation regarding the website I thought was helpful. I'm also trying to do the same thing. It's something that I want to obviously take advantage of. But the whole essence of today's conversation about being self-employed, the lingo, the lifestyle, we need to recognize as business owners that we are doing something that's unique, it's special, and I refer to it as becoming an accountrepreneur. I think it's something that we need to embrace. It's something we should be proud of, and in doing so, I think it allows us to then thrive. So all of that being said, I hope that you've taken from this conversation today some interesting insights, some applicable things that you can apply in your business, and again, take advantage of that opportunity to go to Jeffrey's site and submit to actually have your homepage reviewed. So Jeffrey, final thought, what would you like to share before we wrap this up?
And I think for your audience of accounting firms, I think the final thought I want to leave you with is really stepping into the true definition of being an expert. You are experts in your field. And the true definition of an expert is to know what people need before they know what to ask for. Anything short of that is good customer service. And I think customer service today is just too low of a bar, because if you give people what they ask for, you have served them. Good enough, but it doesn't tend to impress people. The way that if you step into your expertise and really step into delivering what people need, that you know they need, that they don't even know to ask for, that's what blows people away. It's not just being a step ahead, although that's a part of it. It's actually really understanding what they need that they don't know to ask for. It's like going to any other, who we think of as an expert, like, for example, a doctor. Right? I don't want the doctor to just nod their head as to what, to give me what I think I need. I want them to say what they know that I need that I wouldn't even know to ask for. I wouldn't know that solution was possible. And that, to me, I think is a really an important shift from kind of customer service to really stepping into your expertise that we need a lot of, because customer service, serving your clients well, is just not enough to stand out today, where what people really want is for you to provide for them what they don't even know to ask for, and that will blow them away.
Love it. Love it. Our perspective, our insights, our expertise, as you're saying, it's essentially what it is that we can bring to the table, allowing us to over-deliver on our clients' expectations of the services we're providing. Well said. That was great. So here's what I'm going to do, everyone. Obviously, if you've enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to like, subscribe. Definitely turn on the notifications for you to receive other episodes as we release them each and every week, bringing on the guests, experts that we need to be hearing from as we run the premier accounting business in our area. Now, as for this, go back and check our other episodes. You can binge watch and hear the various things that we've discussed with other people on topics related to your current situation. Check those out. Obviously, take the time to invest in your business and hear what the experts are saying about the various things related to marketing, selling, pricing, client onboarding, tech stats, mental health. There's a number of topics out there that you can definitely take advantage of. In addition to this, we definitely want to encourage you to check out GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference for owners of accounting, bookkeeping, tax businesses. We invite you to come work on your business, step aside from the day-to-day operations, and interact with your peers, find out what's working in the industry, hear from the experts, and also get to know us here at Universal Accounting Center. So check out what you can about GrowCon, coming, joining us, and being with us here at GrowCon each and every year. Lastly, I do want to point out that with regards to these principles and all the others that we discuss, if you'd like to find out more how you can apply them in your business, visit us at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.